All right, welcome to Talk of the Town. I'm Jake Fuller with my co-host, Ed Brady, the big dog, who is en route, I imagine. And, we've been talking a lot about the proposed sales tax for road repair and code enforcement and all that kind of thing. And one of the subjects we've talked about extensively in the past was the biomass plant. And, of course, the people that were responsible for bringing it to us was damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead, didn't care what anybody else said. Looks like we're stuck with it now. And so we want to let everybody know, and that's what this show is about, what we're in for. And now that we're going to be dealing with this biomass plant for 30 years, not only is it going to impact our pocketbooks, but how's it going to impact our health? And so we've invited an expert on this situation, Dr. Bill Sammons, and we welcome you to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, why don't you give our listeners a little, recap of, what your background is and how you got involved with this biomass controversy. And
well, I'm a pediatrician, and I actually got involved with this almost 3 years ago now, and people came to me about actually a water withdrawal permit on a plant in Massachusetts, and they were concerned that this plant, which was proposed in Russell, Massachusetts, was going to drain the Westfield River dry. Sounded to me like a bit of a fish story, so to speak, since it was fishing and how I found out about this. Turned out, in fact, that it was going to take a huge amount of water. And then I started to read about biomass plants because I really didn't know anything about biomass plants and what they were. And actually, we ought to be talking about biomass combustion because that's the really relevant issue. And it turns out that the more you read about these plants, the more questions it raises, both about the environmental costs, the overall financial costs, the economic viability of this, and most especially the health costs, because what's happened is that the regulations which they go through in terms of getting permits don't actually adequately protect the population, because much of the recent medical research has shown that many of the emissions that are most harmful to people, and especially the population at large, primarily children and older adults, are not adequately covered by the regulations and the permits. Therefore, the communities aren't protected where these plants are sited.
Well, I find it ironic that Gainesville is a major health center, with Shands and North Florida Regional Medical Center and the VA. So we have, and now they're trying to raise enough funds to build a children's hospital. And so we're going to have a children's hospital, a VA for older veterans, and a biomass plant. It's very interesting that they just totally ignore the health centers and all of that, the health concerns. They just push it aside. It's going to really impact. How is health going to be impacted? Is it mainly respiratory?
This area is sort of an exploding area of medical research at the moment. I didn't really know much about one particular pollutant called ultrafine particulates until a couple of years ago. I was actually on a plane going to give a talk about biomass and read a big summary article by the American Heart Association, which was published in 2005, and talked about all the different effects that these small particles have on the body. And not only do they cause cardiac disease, they cause respiratory disease, but the really small particles actually get through the lung and are distributed in the bloodstream throughout the body. And they've now been linked causally, statistically significant levels to many, many other disease levels, and that diseases and other problems that especially affect children because they grow up exposed to these higher levels over a longer period of time than most adults. So that right now, I think that one of the things that's happened is that many people, even in the medical world, aren't totally aware of exactly how negative and how much deleterious, harmful impact these kinds of plants are going to have.
Yeah. Our call-in line is 352-372-3995 if you want to ask a question or weigh in on this topic. Now, is this is this going to be similar to, say, a kid growing up in a household with secondhand smoke, or is it going to be worse? I mean, it's kind of similar, isn't it?
It's at least similar, and it may be even worse. Let me give a couple of examples just so people understand what this is likely to be. These ultrafine particulates have been now shown to be causally associated with a number of different diseases, but I'll just give a couple of examples. One is that what they've shown is that children who are exposed to higher levels of these particulates over time have a 3-fold greater increase in incidence of asthma. That means it's not just making asthma worse for kids who are already sick, but actually causing asthma. That was a big study in California. Another study, which was done in Indiana, a similar study was done in California, tried to look at long-term effect on lung function, and they saw that kids who had been exposed to higher levels had a 20% total loss of lung function when they measured them as adolescents. So that, again, what we're talking about with smoking, for instance, if you or I smoke 2 packs a day for 20 years and we're otherwise healthy adults and then we stop, there's a lot of lung damage, but in fact, as an adult, you will recover. What they're able to show with these kids is that they have a loss of lung function and they never recover that.
Because their lungs are developing as they grow.
Their lungs are developing, and the inhalation, especially of the particulates, but also a number of other chemicals which will be released by this plant or any biomass combustion plant, cause hazardous air pollutants, volatile organic chemicals. They all affect how the lung actually develops in children, so that what you see is when you look at the tissue under a microscope, you can actually see that it's changed visually, and you can also see that functionally it's very different.
Now, would this be then similar to the harmful effects of, say, fossil fuels? Because part of the reason they promote biomass is they say, well, it's not as bad as, say, coal. Does coal have the same effect on lung development and such, or is it worse, better, about the same?
Well, let's deal with the primary problem with what people say about biomass. When you actually look at the stack emissions of biomass plants, and we have looked at permit after permit after permit, they actually produce more of these chemicals per unit of power than burning coal. So yes, coal does produce the same kind of pollutants, but when you look at per megawatt hour that's produced by any plant, biomass combustion clearly produces more of these hazardous pollutions than burning coal, and vastly more than burning natural gas.
And they've got, I've heard about, clean coal technology, with scrubbers and all that kind of thing. Don't they have the same thing for biomass, or is that just not required?
Well, one of the things that's interesting about how they go about permitting these plants is that they try to size them in a way that they can end up getting permitted as either what's called a synthetic miner or actually as a minor source. And what happens then is that they try and maneuver the numbers so that they don't reach certain thresholds of the pollutants. And what happens then is that they don't have to use the best possible control technology in order to limit the pollutants. Coal plants, on the other hand, are usually much bigger in terms of their much bigger size. So they go ahead and they have to use the best possible control. Therefore, relatively speaking, they do more to limit the pollutants per unit of power produced than the biomass plants do.
Okay. Well, our call-in line is 372-3995. We're going to go ahead and take our break here, and we'll be right back.
Thinking of alternative investments? Now's the time to think about buying gold and silver, precious metals, as a hedge against inflation. With the dollar and the euro so unstable, investors worldwide have turned to precious metals. If you're ready to get started, stop in and see Ann or Vince at Coin and Jewelry Gallery Millhopper. You can trade in your old gold for something new or toward bullion investments. Coin and Jewelry Gallery on Northwest 43rd Street next to Beef O'Brady's in the Millhopper Shopping Center. Or call 378-3983 to get started today.
This is Gunnar from Skyfrog Tree Service. This is our second advertisement with 99.5. We're reaching out to the right people. I'm very grateful to be on the Thomas Hayes Morrison Show and a supporter of that program. When we send a representative out to someone that's called in for an estimate, the approach that Robin and John have is as an arborist first to see what we can do for your trees and for the customer. I'm extremely proud of my crew. Skyfrog has a great safety record and we have a lot of repeat business, so that says something about what we're doing. Please call John or Robin at 352-262-3470 or check us out on our webpage, skyfrogtreeservice.com. One of the most important things I tell my guys, and I tell them all the time, is to leave the yard looking like it was your mom's yard, squared away and better than when you got there. I'm a retired Marine officer and I run my business that way. Don't forget our website, skyfrogtreeservice.com. Stay motivated.
Look how easy Florida Credit Union has made it to get a new credit card.
Don't give up having a credit card. Just give up the high interest rates. Make the switch to a Florida Credit Union credit card today and start enjoying lower interest rates, lower payments, and better customer service. Consolidate your high interest rate balances into one easy low rate payment with Florida Credit Union. We're not the big banks. We're local and not for profit. Make the switch today and start saving.
Come on and join the team. You'll be glad you did.
Call Jake and Ed now. 372-3995. That's 372-3995.
All right, we're back on Talk of the Town. We're speaking with Dr. Bill Sammons, and he's a pediatrician who's gotten involved in this biomass controversy. And you know, one of the things I saw in some of the literature is that how it affects unborn children. And maybe you could elaborate on that.
Well, one of the things that, again, is important is that these very small particles get absorbed into the body, and they cross over every membrane in the body, including the placenta. Placenta is really a remarkable organ, and it excludes a lot of chemicals, but that doesn't happen with ultrafine. So what they've now been able to show is that clearly ultrafine exposure is correlated with a number of congenital central nervous system anomalies like spina bifida. They clearly have shown that it is related to lower birth weight in babies, which has significant medical effects and long-term medical costs. And I spent a lot of my early career taking care of very sick newborn infants. And one of the things that they've now been able to show is that exposure to small level particulates clearly is one of the causal factors that induces premature labor, which for all families is a huge emotional tragedy usually. It's a tremendous medical cost, and a long-term survival, especially the very small kids, while we can keep them alive right now, has all other kinds of long-term medical problems associated with it. So that we know that this is having an impact during pregnancy. We know it's having an impact on the children after they're born, and the list goes on and on and on in terms of the association with now autism. There's an association with kids who have ADHD in their symptoms. There are a number of different association studies showing causal effect in terms of incidence of diabetes mellitus and insulin-dependent diabetes. And the more you look at the research in this area, the more it's expanding rapidly. You can see literally, if you go on PubMed, which is accessible to anybody, there are about 5,000 articles on the medical effects of small level particulates in the last 4 to 5 years. The associations, statistically significant associations to many, many disease processes, is, as a physician, it's truly scary. And how people can ignore this is a mystery to me. And the proponents all say they figured it out and they say it's safe. And yet, if you ask them to come back and give you the actual data, the research publications which show it's safe, they never do that because they don't, in fact, have the data to be able to do it.
I was going to ask you, I was going to direct my questioning to how you interact or how you're treated, because the attitude here in this community is if you are against the biomass plant or you're not in favor of it, you're beneath even the need to consider conversation. I mean, they just they figured it all out. It's contemptible, yeah. And have you had that similar experience in other parts of the country?
Oh, about 22 or 24 states. On the other hand, I have to tell you, we've now stopped 24 of these plants across the country, and we're going to stop more of them because they are a real hazard to any community that they're in. But I would just say to people, if you feel like you're not up to their level, make sure they come to anybody's common sense level and make them give you the data which will show that this plant is going to be safe. They cannot do it because it doesn't exist.
I was going to say, I mean, but who should we believe? Former Mayor Pegeen Hanrahan, the City Commission, Rob Brinkman, or a board-certified, pediatric physician?
I think that the operative word is belief. Yeah. To me, what's really important here is anybody who can read at a 5th grade level can look at this information. They can contact me. I'll be happy to send it to them. You don't need a medical degree. You don't need to be very sophisticated to look at these papers. All you have to do is read the conclusions. When the American Heart Association comes out and says that exposure at current levels for small level particulates, small size particulates, is clearly a population health hazard, there's no belief involved in this. This is pure fact level. When they come out and they say that there is a causal association to various kinds of cancers, I think 22 at this point, there is no belief. That's a statement of fact. So, when you come out and you say, we can show that this has caused asthma in children, when you can come out and see the fact statement that we know it has caused permanent loss of lung function in children, there is no belief. What the local politicians are asking you to do is believe something. What I'm saying to people is, go look at what the facts are. Go look at what the legitimate research is. They can make up their own minds about whether they want to believe the politicians or believe what's in fact the real world.
So, yeah, local politicians are pretty much saying, who are you going to believe, us or your lying eyes? You know, I mean, that's what they're saying, you know.
Yeah, our call-in line is 372-3995, and I just want to tick off a few of these associations that support your point of view, the fact-based point of view. You have here the Capital Medical Society, the American Lung Association, Massachusetts Breast Cancer Coalition, American Lung Association, the American Lung Association in New England, the Florida Medical Association, the Massachusetts Medical Society, North Carolina Academy of Family Physicians, American Heart Association, Washington State Medical Association. Yeah, it just goes, the list goes on and on. I'm not even done with it. I mean, that's a pretty credible body of people. You know, it's not your tinfoil hat crowd.
Like the city commission.
Exactly.
Let's take this caller, Gene, on line one. Welcome to the show, Gene.
Yes, thank you very much. I have two questions for the doctor based on his research, and it sounds like it's been extensive. Two questions. One, can he give us some idea of the radius, the geographical radius in which, based on the research, that it impacts the citizens out there, some general idea? And the second question is, does it make a difference the type of wood products that are burned in the biomass plant? We know that you normally wouldn't burn pine, for instance, in your fireplace. But is there a difference in the type of products that are burned there in the biomass plant? So those are my two questions, and I'll hang up so I can listen to the answers.
All right, thanks. That was Jean Calderwood. She's a candidate for the Alachua County Commission. Anyway, I'll turn it over to you.
To do them in the order you asked, Gene, generally the dispersal of the chemicals varies a little bit with the type of chemical we're talking about. Usually in the bigger plants, they have to do a model. Now, there are problems with the models, but they must have a document on hand for this plant, for the air permit, that shows some of the dispersal. On the other hand, the American Lung Association came out with a study, I think last July, I'd be happy to send it to you, that shows that they've been able to document dispersal up to 200 miles. Let me add here that what's important about particulates especially, but it's also true of dioxin, is that those are chemicals in which there is no safe threshold of exposure, meaning that you can't say a certain level is okay for everybody, and above that level it's not okay. So with particulates, and especially ultrafines, the higher the exposure level, the greater the risk to the population. So they clearly will spread over wide ranges, but depending on whether you want to talk about particulates, volatile organic chemicals, HAPs, etc., the dispersal area is a little different. In terms of the type of wood, generally what they do with these plants is they're going to chip all the wood up so that it's not quite the same as burning a pine log in your fireplace. On the other hand, what they often tend to do, especially in areas where they get a lot of rain, is that they then have to add things to the wood in order to keep it relatively dry so it will burn efficiently. And when that happens, then you start getting into the emission of many other harmful chemicals. So that
which could
does
be a
make a
problem
difference
here in Alachua County because it's a humid environment. Wood dries out slower than it would out west. So yeah, it could be a problem.
Well, it's also a problem in terms of the permit numbers that they say they're going to emit are based on sort of optimal combustion efficiencies. If the wood's wet, things start to change and they get worse rather than better.
Yeah. Well, let's take Kevin on line 2. Thanks for waiting, Kevin. Go ahead.
Thanks for taking the call. I know you talked about this earlier a little bit. I couldn't concentrate on it, but is there any way to scrub out the ultrafine particles? And I know you're talking about coal and natural gas. Do they scrub it out of coal?
Yeah,
well, go ahead.
Well, actually, one of the major concerns that I have is that at the moment, I've been spending a lot of time communicating with many professionals in the area who are into looking at control technologies. Right now, we do not have a good way to take out the ultrafines. So, and part of that, I think, is just the system, in that there is no regulation that makes the plants control them. And in our society, people aren't going to invest the money to develop the technology, and certainly the people who run the plants aren't going to buy the technology, even if it was available, because they don't have to put in the money. Therefore, their investors don't want them to spend it. So we're in a bit of a holding pattern right now. The people I've talked to feel the technology could be developed, but it isn't there at the moment. So because there hasn't been the incentive, because there are no regulations to enforce it.
Yeah.
Have you heard anything about the cost? Hello?
Yes.
Oh, good. The cost to change it over to a natural gas or coal plant?
Well, again...
thanks a lot. I'm going to hang up.
All right, thanks.
My email address is drsammons, DRSAMMONS, @AOL.com. I can send you information about that. It's clear right now that it is financially, both in the short term and the long term, much, much cheaper to run a natural gas plant. The emissions are less, the cost of building the plant is less, the operational efficiency of the plant is much, much greater. This biomass combustion plant will probably run at about 24% efficiency. A good gas turbine right now can hit 70%, so you're wasting much less energy. The emissions are literally 1/4, 1/5 of what's going to be coming out of the biomass plant. So from an environmental point of view, from a financial point of view, from an operating cost point of view, it would make much more sense for these people to be building a natural gas plant if you even need the power. Right now, baseload power demands are going down.
Yeah, the interesting point here is after much of the votes were taken and all of that stuff, we then later learned from the Public Service Commission that no new capacity is needed until at least the year 2023. That's a full decade away. So, yeah.
And also, you kind of wonder, well, maybe you would know this, would a natural gas plant use less water? Because it's going to take a lot of water for this biomass plant.
I don't know specifically what the relative water usage is. Generally, I think it's going to be a little less, but let's just say that's a wash for the time being. The other thing which is very important here is that the economic viability of this plant is built on a whole set of tax credits and federal subsidies, which I'm not sure, I hope, won't continue to exist. So the relative cost of operating this plant is very likely to rise dramatically in the next 3 or 4 years, because the country does face a debt crisis, and some of this is going to have to be dealt with by probably restricting some of these tax credits. The reason I'm saying that is we do spend a fair amount of time talking with people in Washington, and that does seem to be the direction in which the Congress is finally heading.
So it's as they always say, follow the money. This is why we'll get into that, why they're so intent on doing biomass. But we're going to ask our callers to hang on. We got to take a break here on Talk of the Town. We'll be right back.
The doctors at Eye Surgery Center understand that you've worked hard to get where you are today, and the last thing you need is decreased vision. The doctors apply state-of-the-art technique and technology to give their patients the best options for eye care and cataract treatment, including the multifocal Restore lens for both distance and near vision. So if you've been told that you have cataracts or you're just not happy with your vision, call Eye Surgery Center at 352-377-7733. That's Eye Surgery Center, 377-7733.
I'm Wally, and I'm not a lawyer, but I do fish. And when I have a question about fishing, I ask Gary. That's right, Gary, at Gary's Tackle Box in Gainesville. He has the most up-to-date information for the hottest fishing action in our area. He'll guide you to the best choice of rods and reels, from Lew's to Loomis. He's got you covered for fresh and salt water with a complete line of tackle. He can also spool your reels with mono, fluorocarbon, or braid while you wait. Gary's Tackle Box is located at L&S Auto Trim, Gainesville's finest in auto and boat upholstery since 1952.
That's right, Wally. L&S specializes in convertible tops, leather, and custom canvas work.
If you have a fishing question, come in and ask Gary at Gary's Tackle Box.
And to spruce up your car or boat interior, ask Wally or Lee at L&S Auto Trim, 441 North between 53rd Avenue and the Highway Patrol Station.
Click on Gary'sTackleBox.com for the fishing report from the folks you fish with.
Anything's possible with a dream.
Lisa Renshaw, Blue Dove Designs.
We love when people walk in with a dream, with an idea. They can walk out with the tools that they need to build their dream and be successful. Blue Dove Designs is an award-winning web design and marketing company. We've established ourselves as a one-stop resource for everything you need for your business. A logo, website, business cards, brochures, marketing advice, social media, anything you need for your business. We want to be that resource.
Can your business afford not to have Blue Dove's team working for you?
We have a fantastic team of designers and developers. Talented, easy to work with, fun. We're serious when we need to be, but we also love the relationships that we create with our clients, and our clients are family.
Call Blue Dove Designs before your competition does.
Call us at 352-275-5813 or visit our website at bludovedesigns.com, and we'll help your dreams take flight.
Call Jake and Ed now, 372-3995. That's 372-3995.
The Precious Metals Report is presented by Coin and Jewelry Gallery at 2007 Northwest 43rd Street in the Mellhopper Shopping Center. Current market conditions for gold is $1,620.20 per ounce. Silver is selling for $31.56 per ounce. And platinum commands $1,608 per ounce. That's the Precious Metals Report presented by Coin and Jewelry Gallery.
If only the biomass plant was as clean as Ed's delivery. Oh, man, his guy's a pro.
World class.
I'll tell you. Let's take Terry on line 2. Go ahead, Terry.
Good afternoon, guys. And, one of the things I want to let folks know is, number one, I'm against the biomass plants simply because on what it's going to cost the taxpayers. And we know the only way that it was going to be profitable was going to be on the carbon exchange. But I'm listening to what the doctor has to say, and this sounds like some of the same information that when the Florida rock plant was coming in by Newberry and it putting out the scare tactics. I'm reluctant into going off his information based on when I grew up in the 50s and 60s, we were using coal and wood, and we're talking about the fine particulate, and no offense, but I think it's spoof technology that he's talking about.
Really? Well, we'll let you address that.
My best answer for you is email me. I'll send it to you. You can look at it. You can decide whether it's spoof or not. All I can tell you is that when we brought this material to, again, many communities across the country, those communities have worked to now stop, I think, 24 of these plants. You can read it and you can see for yourself. These are peer-reviewed papers. They come from organizations like the American Heart Association, etc., which I don't think are particularly invested in spoof technology. And you can read it yourself and see. I think what you'll see is that, in fact, much of the information has been recently developed, meaning the last 5 to 6 years. The information about the emissions is taken from the air permits of these plants, so we're not making it up. And the conclusions are just dead set. This is a huge danger. The American Heart Association, all these medical associations, don't come out and say that they're against something based on a wish and a prayer. They ask for a lot of facts and a lot of information, and they've looked at that and they decided that this is a big risk. Again, the American Heart Association has come out and said that the current levels of particulate exposure are dangerous to communities. Why add a power source which we know is going to produce more particulates than burning coal? It's going to produce vastly more particulates than burning natural gas. And as you said, the real kicker on this is financially, it's not a viable business operation.
So Terry, what you're saying is you put more trust into Rob Brinkman than you do a physician, right?
Oh no, that's not what I'm saying at all.
That's exactly what you're saying.
No, it isn't.
Yeah, you're saying you think what he's saying is spoof statistics or whatever, and you're putting all your trust into
Pegeen. He said he agrees with Rob Brinkman.
Well, I mean, you got to come down to one side or the other. It sounds to me like that's what you're saying.
But what we're going back and go back to remember when the controversy was for the plant over Florida Rock's plant over by Newberry. We had all the same information that was coming down and all the same scare tactics. Now, and it all come unfounded. I'm not saying that there isn't going to be any particulate in the air. But what I am saying is when you're putting all these health risks on wood versus coal or gas, they have the same. And again, I don't know all the technologies when it comes to scrubber effects, but what I can tell you is we were burning wood years and years ago, and
not on the same. Yeah, but not on the same level. Just because you have a fireplace that's putting out smoke doesn't mean it's going to be putting out the same level as a biomass plant.
Well, see, what I'm looking at is he was, I'm taking off what I first heard, where if he was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes, somebody was smoking 2 packs of cigarettes per day, I would like to see what the downwind forecast is and what the elements are toward the plant and what the emissions are going out. I don't know if that effect has even been, that information has even been put out there, what the downwind forecast is going to be on the amount of particulate in the area. So.
All right, so what you're saying is the same people that were against the cement plant are now for the biomass plant, so they're really the ones that are inconsistent then, right?
I agree with that 100%.
All right, well, I'll tell you what, if you want to, go to the doctor's email address.
Can you give out your email address?
Yeah, it's Dr. Sammons, no period, DrSammons@AOL.com. Again, your brief reference was back, I think, in the 60s or whatever. I don't know when the cement plant was. Much of this information was not available in the 60s, 70s, 80s.
The cement plant was in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Well, again, what you'll see is I'll send you one of the talks. Everything has got a URL on it. You can just click on it, find the papers. What you'll see is much of the relevant medical research is certainly within the last decade. Most of it's within the last 5 years. Furthermore, again, before you believe the proponents of this plant, you darn well ought to make sure that they give you the information to say exactly how much of this are they putting out, accurately measured, by the way, and what the dispersal rate is going to be. I think you'll find that there is a real risk here to the population, especially children growing up in this community, as you raise the level of particulates. And again, I'm not talking about other things which we could be discussing on this program, like dioxin and about dozens of other potentially harmful chemicals that the plant puts out. And the major thing you want to consider here is that there is no safe threshold of exposure for small level particulates. And that is relatively new information, but it has been repeatedly documented over and over and over again.
All right, we appreciate the call, Terry, and I'm sure Pegeen appreciated that call also.
Man, you keep taking digs at him.
Hey, I'll tell you what, who are you going to believe? You got to come down on one side or the other, and that's the way I read it. But anyway, let's take B on line 2. Go ahead, B.
Yeah, Dr. Sammons, I appreciate you taking part in this, and I'm one of the few that has the no biomass sign that wasn't taken up in my front yard. I'm also with the coppers, and what I'm highly upset about with the biomass as well as with the coppers is right behind me there was a couple with a year-old child that moved out because of the dioxin levels. The dioxin level inside the house is runs about 500, and the arsenic and all that is running above 90 through here. In the meantime, they turned around and they put another young couple with a 2-year-old. And the Alachua EPD, or a friend of the Alachua EPD, told them that the contamination level isn't that bad up here. It's like they're listening to different people, and I'm seeing the same thing. It's the money that's running. Whoever's going to be investing, whoever's buying the land for the wood, whoever has the money, and that's what they're listening to. And it's a lot of propaganda, and it really has me concerned when you have young children that's coming into the area, and also with the biomass, with the contaminants that's going to be coming from the biomass, as well as what we're getting from coppers. I'd like to have your input as far as the young children.
But there's no question, and again, I'll be happy to send people the research papers on this. There's no question that as children get exposed to higher and higher levels of fine-level particulates or dioxin, since you brought that up, that cumulatively over time, their risk is significantly greater than people who are my age, like 60, who didn't grow up exposed to this over a long period of time. The other thing that people need to understand about dioxin is that the Institute of Medicine, which is part of the National Academy of Sciences, a totally nonpartisan group, put out a report a couple of years ago which showed that while people may be aware of the cancer risks of dioxin, it actually turns out that the other medical risks with causative problems with dioxin causing other diseases, that's a greater health risk to the population than the actual cancer risks from dioxin. So the problem here is that when kids are repeatedly exposed over longer periods of time to even small increments like 2 micrograms per meter cubed of air of the particulates, you can show that it has a significant increase in health risks. So when they say it's, quote, not that bad, again, somebody ought to be insisting to say to them, what are your standards? What constitutes not that bad? Because what we're learning now is with some of these chemicals, specifically the ultrafines, the small particulates, the dioxin, that there really isn't a not that bad. As soon as you get above 0, you are increasing health risk. Every bit further up on the scale, the more risk there is.
All right, let's take John on line 2. Welcome to the show, John.
Hey, guys. Great show. Informative as always. I'm probably one of the few people around that's actually worked on a wood-burning biomass plant. I used to be an electrician by trade and worked on the Georgia Pacific wood-burning plant that they had that supplements their paper mill over in Palatka. And we rebuilt it many years ago, actually now. And 2 observations that I made while I was there, and one of them was back and forth driving to work every day because the trucks that haul the chips, they hauled them from the plywood mill in the Hawthorne area there, would literally run you off the road because they were paid by the load. They were not contracted by GP, and they would run you off the road. So there's that safety hazard plus the diesel. But the other thing I want to ask the doctor, maybe he has looked into this, is, and this is not scientific, this is only an observation. It looked to me like they were constantly scrambling to get enough fuel to run this plant, and it was just, as I remind you, only a supplement to running their mill because they had electricity from, I believe, Florida Power at the same time. So I was wondering if any of his research talked about how much fuel they're going to actually need to keep this plant, which dwarfs the one in Palatka, and I'll hang up in this.
All right, thanks. That was John Martin. He's another candidate for Alachua County Commission.
John, there's no question that there are going to be huge fuel issues, especially when you start to look at the proposed other possible plants in northern Florida and southern Georgia. And while the proponents say there's plenty of waste wood out there, it's very hard to find a reliable documentation that says over time there's going to be enough waste wood, especially to fuel a plant like this one at 100 megawatts. Let me back up again to something which you brought up, which we should mention, and that's that part of the permitting process you would think would be to account for the emissions from the diesel trucks, which are especially high in particulates. In fact, they don't have to account for those truck emissions, and those are clearly going to affect all of these local communities. So when people, as in the caller, 2 callers ago, are wondering about what's the effect going to be and how much dispersal, certainly along the traffic routes these trucks are going to go, the particulate level will rise significantly, and therefore the health effects on people who live around those routes is going to rise significantly. But the whole issue about fuel and where they're going to get the fuel, how far they're going to have to truck it, is a very relevant issue. And I know the proponents, as in many of the other plants we've been to, dismiss this. But when you look at a number of reliable studies, including one that just came out from the Southern Environmental Law Center, they show that, in fact, there isn't enough wood in the southeast to feed the current proposed 22 new plants, let alone all the other ones that are in the process of trying to come online.
All right, listen, we got to take our last break for the day, and we'll be right back.
You better tackle this deal before it gets away from you.
Move your accounts to Florida Credit Union today and take advantage of our totally free checking, free Visa debit card, free first box of checks, free internet banking, free bill payer, free e-statements, free account alerts. Totally free checking from Florida Credit Union. Seriously, no strings attached. We're not the big banks. We're local and not-for-profit. Make the switch today and start saving.
You've got the ball. Isn't it time to run with it?
Ready and go. Your bracket's looking good, but your TV's not so hot. So head to Sears right away. You're sure to save a lot.
The ultimate hoops experience is on at Sears. Come in now or visit Sears.com/hoops and save $600 on a 55-inch Panasonic 1080p 3D TV, only $999.88. Also save big on top brands like Samsung, Sony, and LG.
For a great price, Sears has no equal. Now here comes the guy with the mandatory legal.
Prices may vary in Alaska and Hawaii. Sale ends March 17th, 2012.
Legal!
Welcome to Wilkins Bank. For checking, press 1. Savings, press 2. For other options, press other options. Is that correct? Press 3. To go back. For checking, press 1. Checking, is that correct? Mortgages. Lost or stolen ATM. For fraud.
If your bank won't let you talk to a real person 24/7 by pressing 0, you need an Ally. Ally Bank. No nonsense. Just people sense. Member FDIC.
Domino's, the pizza partner of the Florida Gators, listens to you and proudly introduces our newest artisan pizza, the Chicken and Bacon Carbonara. A healthier option pizza made from thinly stretched dough and topped with premium chicken, smoked bacon, roasted tomatoes, and Alfredo sauce for only $7.99. Just $7.99 each for any of our 4 delicious artisan pizzas. Click GatorDomino's.com to order from the pizza partner of the Florida Gators.
If you would like to contact Ed and Jake, you can email them at talk995@gmail.com. That's talk995@gmail.com.
And our call-in line is 372-3995. Let's take John on line 1. Welcome to the show, John.
Yeah, good afternoon. Interesting show you got today, but, I'm not so sure it would matter if it doubles the air pollution in Gainesville, if it doubles our electric bills. I'm not so sure we can get out of it now. Has anybody ever stopped to think that the stimulus funds that we get to use this thing with, maybe there's a catch on there. Once we use the stimulus funds, we're locked into it. Maybe we can't get out. Maybe they won't let us know that. Have I ever looked up that street?
Yeah, John, but, look on there's always a silver lining. So look on the bright side. They're really stimulating economic benefits because look at all the business that the health center is going to be getting.
Well, here's another silver lining. If the Republicans want to beat Obama in 2012, all they got to do is point the disaster areas like Gainesville, Portland, Oregon, and San Francisco, where Democrats have totally run it with a liberal Nancy Pelosi type of mentality, and look at the disasters they've become, and ask America if they want to become like that too.
All right, well, thanks for the call. All right, we appreciate it. Let's take Mark on line 2. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, great show today, guys. One question for the doctor. Everything pollutes, but I don't know if you have any data on it or not, but what's, natural gas is relatively clean compared to biomass. why wouldn't have anybody opted to just put up gas turbine generators out there and go directly from heat to power and not boil water, which is a pretty inefficient way of doing it unless you're running nuclear power. That's the only efficient way to really heat water in a large quantity to make steam. So I was just wondering, why anybody wouldn't consider going to gas turbines on natural gas.
I think that's a great question, and I don't know what the city officials' answer to that is. Let me reiterate what I said before. Burning natural gas is significantly more efficient. It costs less to build the plant of the same capacity. It costs less to run the plant. The emissions of the most harmful chemicals are much, much less. We're talking 1/4 of what this plant will emit per unit of power. So your question's bang on the money, and I think the elected officials owe the community a very clear explanation of why they've chosen to go with the most expensive kind of power you can buy. Right now, the NREL put out a study last summer showing that biomass combustion is far and away the most expensive form of so-called renewable power. It's equivalent to the cost both to build and operate of nuclear energy. I'll send anybody the study they want to see it. It's dirtier than coal. It's much dirtier than burning natural gas. It's an environmental hazard. At this point, we need to keep every tree we can keep. We don't need to start chopping down other trees. It's a major health hazard. And not only does that mean that more people are going to be sick, it means more people are going to be sicker. And in terms of the overall health of the country, the financial cost cumulatively of about 240 plants across the country, which are currently proposed, is going to be literally billions of dollars.
Well, also one thing with natural gas, thanks a lot, we appreciate the call. One thing about natural gas is you eliminate the truck traffic.
Well, you certainly eliminate the truck traffic, and one of the things which is absolutely paradoxical and just can't be understood is you would think in terms of permitting these plants that DEP and EPA would make them account for the emissions from the diesel trucks, especially the particulates that are involved in what may be as much as a 150-mile round trip, and yet they don't. When we looked at the calculations on many of these plants, which are generally 40 to 50 megawatts, or about half the size of the plant here in Gainesville, the truck emissions of particulates are almost the same amount as the particulate emissions from the plant. Therefore, if you add the two together, they'd all have to be permitted as so-called major sources, which would, in fact, help at least reduce some of the pollution problems.
Yeah, and they always bounce back to the key word renewable. So that's where, if you say, well, natural gas or coal, well, it's not renewable,
But natural gas used to have that reputation before the environmental movement moved toward biofuels and all that stuff. Natural gas used to be called the, quote, clean fossil fuel. And no fuel's perfect, but it was relative to coal and oil and all of that. Is that right?
Yes, and it's still clean. And again, I think people should think a minute about renewable. Unfortunately, when these policies, primarily tax policies, got put in place the last 10 years or so, the assumption was that this was, quote, renewable, meaning it should be lumped together with solar energy, wind energy, tidal energy. And yet when you think about it, that's absolutely nonsensical. The only way you can cut down a tree and make it renewable is you got to let the whole thing grow back. The power plant isn't responsible for making the trees grow back. They're not going to be responsible for making sure that this is carbon neutral or climate neutral. If you look at it, it means that in order for this to balance out, you have to allow about 100 years. In terms of where we are at the moment, in terms of emissions, in terms of health consequences, we don't have 100 years to let this balance out. So really what should happen now in terms of regulations and law is that biomass combustion should no longer be considered as, quote, a renewable along with all the other renewables. It should be regulated and handled in a whole separate sector of the power industry.
Before we get to some bit of breaking news related to this, looking at a press release saying from dated today, April 4th, Gainesville Citizens Care Inc. files lawsuit asking court to declare the more than $3 billion biomass contract invalid. So it looks like there's still some action that's being done for this.
We had a caller who asked if you could give out your email address one more time.
It's Dr. Sammons, no period, DrSammons @AOL.com.
Let's take Ray on line 2. Welcome to the show, Ray.
Yeah, thanks, Jake. Dr. Sammons, I've read many things you've written. I've also read the American Lung Association reports. I'm not a scientist, and I can't weigh one or the other, but I do take into account reputable organizations, and so I would be inclined to give great weight to that. I did represent 5 citizens. I'm an attorney who last year, about a year ago, settled, many of them unwillingly, but for a good purpose, a lawsuit that involved the challenge to the air permit in this case. One of the real issues, 2 of the issues in that air permit case, which I don't think a lot of people are familiar with, is putting aside the argument of whether these pollutants are over a certain limit or not. What I found interesting in that lawsuit is that the folks who were pushing this biomass plant absolutely refused to have the diesel emissions considered. Not to get to an argument whether they're good or bad. They just didn't want them considered, measured, period. The 2.5 particulates, the same thing. They came up with various legal strategies in order to keep their this being considered by the DEP. So whether you're right or wrong, it never got a hearing. Now, these folks ended up settling for their various reasons. One reason was to get unredacted or made public a contract that these citizens believed would cause the political process to work and to have there be an actual examination of this system. At that point, I got out of the legal aspect of it and I started helping people with the political aspect. And over the last year, I've been absolutely shocked that since this contract was made public, and it was made public 1 year ago this week, that the City Commission would not step up and do its fiduciary duty. The City Commissioners, I met with each commissioner privately with an organization called Gainesville Citizens Care, which I represented at that time. I don't now.
Ray, we're going to run out of time. If you have a question for the doctor.
I do.
Okay.
The bottom line, doctor, is number one, how can your arguments even be weighed if the people who put up biomass plants refuse to measure diesel emissions and 2.5? And number two, just for the public, there is going to be news today about the political process having failed and the courts getting back into this. So, piece of news and a question.
Well, you can calculate what the diesel emissions are going to be. I was on the way down trying to review some documents I had about this case. I'm familiar with the legal settlement, and as far as I know, there is no limit here on this plant for 2.5 emissions, let alone ultrafines and those particles which are smaller than 2.5. I question whether that's even legal at this stage, because I think Florida has to, as a designated state, has to work under the EPA rules. So to me, it's unconscionable that the city fathers that push forward this, the elected officials that push forward this, without even setting a limit on 2.5 for whatever it's worth. I certainly hope that people in response to this show will make their concerns known. I seriously doubt, again, that this is something which is a totally done deal. We have been many places in the country where they were in the process of beginning to build, et cetera, et cetera. Everybody thought it was a done deal. Turned out not to be a done deal at all. These plants can be stopped.
All right, listen, I wish we had a whole nother hour because we didn't even get into, how the money, you follow the money, that's what everybody says, and I think it's true in this case also. But we sure appreciate you joining us today and taking time out from your schedule. Are you going to be speaking someplace, or were you speaking tomorrow or today? Or
I'm speaking tonight, I think, in Cross City and I also think there's a meeting there tomorrow morning.
Okay. All right. Listen, we hope everybody comes out and listens, and thanks for joining us today. And,
My pleasure.
All right. Thanks for joining us here on Talk of the Town. We'll be back tomorrow.